This is Tyrese Halliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
Well, hello there, Pacer Nation, and welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast. And finally, joining us after a week-long hiatus, it is your boy, Michael J. Facci. Facci, what's going on, brother?
Ooh, they call it Facci around here. Life is good.
You were telling me before we did this podcast today with our guest that there's been other mispronunciations of your name.
There was never Fauci before COVID happened. All right, there was other ones, and I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not gonna give the listeners ideas.
Facci?
All right, I've heard them all, but I never heard Fauci before COVID. So Facci back in the building, feels good. Had a week to really just had a lot going on. Had a bachelor party that I attended. Fortunate, got a promotion at work.
Let's go.
Little celebration with the family. Been working hard. Just some overall good family time. Got my brother in town, my nephews. Life's good, but still always got that Pacer itch. And you just
before we get to Pacers itch, I have to ask you, because there was a transaction that took place on Thursday last week, I believe, in the Major League Baseball Association, right?
Oh,
Major League Baseball, yes. MLB, right?
Yes, correct.
Your New York Mets acquired the longest tenured St. Louis Cardinal, Hell's Bells.
That we did. What were your thoughts on that? Guy just wanted to be happy, wanted to be a Met.
Yeah, I mean, he looks better in that Cardinals uniform. I mean, I think the Cardinals uniforms look quite better than the Mets uniforms, if I'm being honest. The birds on the bat.
Depends who you're asking. So, hey, it's happy. Some extra, relief pitching. Love it for the Mets. Think it's good. They got a good situation now. We'll see what the Mets can do. Need some bats though. We didn't do any real upgrades. From that. But we got Mullins from the Orioles. So,
the Cardinals are just in such a weird spot right now.
They really are. It's not the Cardinals of 10 years ago or.
Well, to me, you know who they remind me of so much. They remind me of the San Antonio Spurs. If I'm comparing an NBA franchise to
I could see that.
Major League Baseball franchise, because I just feel like, when I look at the Cardinals, like they've always been that team that's been there, like the Spurs have been. Yep. They've had these championship runs where you kind of just didn't see it coming, and they've been a little bit of the underdog. But as of late, like they've had some talent, but it's not really panned out. And they had a great run in 2022 when Pujols came back. Molina was his last year, obviously, just a lot of fun stuff there. But like other than that, it's been the last couple of years has been really rough. And so I'm not even the biggest diehard Cardinals fan, but I'm trying to watch a little bit more because I want to be interested. I want to like the team, but it just kind of seems like they need a different direction. And I think that's going to happen once their president of baseball operations steps down after the year.
It's tough. Baseball's tough. A lot of games. Look, I bought the Mets package. This year I was like, I want to believe, let's go. They're on like some other network, like all the time. Like there's always there's so many different networks that carry these games that it's like I bought the package and I feel like I can barely even watch them. So, baseball, it's one of those where it's really fun come playoff time, but there's a lot of games. I think with NBA, you could say there's a lot of games there, but like there could be, a lot of excitement on any given night. Baseball, sometimes it's tough to get up for every game, but this generation might look at the Cardinals and say, man, they stink. All right, it's not what our generation was, where the Cardinals were truly a contender year in, year out. I'm hoping things are more sustainable with the Mets, but I also know there's probably a large amount of our fans and our listeners that are listening saying, I don't care right now. Mets, Cardinals, get them out of here. I want to hear about Pacer basketball. And Alex, I think we have a great guest coming on today. Someone that you just, went on his show recently. Tell everyone who we have coming on our show today.
We got the great Justin Termine, the host of the NBA Today show on Sirius XM Radio from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I think you guys are going to enjoy his take. And like he mentioned on the podcast, they do it 5 days a week, and he's been doing it pretty much since the beginning of the year. I mean, the beginning of the basketball season without a vacation. So that's a lot of basketball to watch. And you're talking about not being able to consume all these Mets games. Like, just imagine having to do a national show 5 days a week for 4 hours where you're having to keep up with everything around the league. Like it's impossible. I don't know how those guys do it. I think it shows how much like they can just absorb and talk about stuff. Like the amount of knowledge that he has of just the league in general to me was fascinating. But like we spent most of our time talking just Pacers, and he has so much to add to all the conversation. So that just goes to show you, like, very good at what he does and very relaxed, very good personality. Just the shirt choice,
Oh,
Almost
gosh.
got him banned from the
Watching
show.
on YouTube, you're going to get sick real quick. I mean, I don't know if we were being like, ribbed or, whatever, like Frank, like it's just, I didn't know if he did it on purpose. Turns out he didn't. Maybe he's just good with politics, knowing what
I think
to
it's a
say
little
in
bit of
the right
both.
situation. I think so. But, yeah, this guy's been in Milwaukee, and at the end, I had to ask him about the grass. I really had to know firsthand. Stay tuned for Justin's answer.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get to that conversation with Justin Termine. All right, everybody, joining us now on Setting the Pace. He is a recurring guest of the show. We always love having him on. He is the host of the NBA Today show on Sirius XM Radio from 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time. It is our friend Justin Termine. Justin, thanks so much for joining the show. How you doing?
Well, fellas, thanks for having me on again. And I mean, listen, I'm sure the podcast took off since the last time I came on because you guys had a good run to cover.
Yeah, for sure. And let me ask you this, because I've seen on your Instagram, there's a picture of you and Eddie interviewing Rick Carlisle in Oklahoma City. What was that experience like, just talking to Coach Carlisle, because he is such a fascinating personality?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's like we interviewed, I think, Tim McMahon, who covered him down in Dallas, and he had made a comment about, hey, listen, Carlisle's one of the great coaches of all time, but people skills at the age of 65, sometimes they come into questions. And I've had really good experiences with Rick and difficult experiences with him, but he always keeps you on your toes. And certainly when he's in a really good mood, in a sharing mood, you get a lot of information out of him because he's clearly one of the best head coaches in the history of the sport. And that was a major theme when we were covering the finals. Like, what if Carlisle wins this? What does it do to his reputation? And unfortunately, it didn't end up winning it, but I still think you can take away a lot in regards to what he accomplished. And I know this is kind of a different answer than just what that experience is like in interviewing him. But, you go into this season every year, and on top of these GM polls, every single year, they say, all right, who's the best coach in the sport? It's Eric Spoelstra. Prior to that, it was Greg Popovich. There was one year, the only outlier, I think, since Popovich started winning that award and then it got handed off to Spoelstra, was Brad Stevens. Got it one year there in like 2000, maybe 18, 19, something like that. I think next year, heading into the year, all those GMs should be checking the box next to Carlisle's name, because to me, right now, he's gotta be called the best coach in the sport after what we saw this past year.
I love it. I felt like he really outcoached his competition round over round, and it became an eye-opening experience when you saw guys like Tibbs, get the axe, or, Kenny Atkinson, who had a really good regular season, go down to the Pacers in 5. So I felt like that was very evident. But, Justin, was there a moment maybe throughout the playoffs where you said, I think we're sleeping on Indiana, and maybe they are for real? Because it felt like round over round, we were waking people up.
Yeah, absolutely. So nationally, I feel like I was one of the guys that was out there giving him a ton of credit. And again, like, I killed him at the beginning of the year. I had 10 and 15. And I'm
deserved at one point.
Halliburton, and I did not vote Halliburton for an All-NBA team this year. Now, I did the year that it mattered if he got paid. I did 2 years ago. I gave him a third-team vote, even though he tailed off towards the tail end of the year. This year, I held him off the list. I still respect the talent. Still thought it was ridiculous when he was called the most overrated. But from a team perspective, once we hit the playoffs, I thought they'd been playing better than just about anybody. So I picked them to win in the first round over Milwaukee relatively easy, and had an argue with my co-host because Eddie Johnson at the time did not pick him. Second round, I ended up picking them against Cleveland after the news came out that there was some injuries there. Then I picked them against New York to win that series relatively easily. So I picked them all the way up to the NBA Finals. Then the NBA Finals, they said this is where it stops. They're going to lose in 5 games. And they even, as a guy that was on the bandwagon, they even made me look like an idiot by taking it to 7. And quite frankly, the way that they started Game 7 with Halliburton looking like the best player on the floor, I thought I was going to be wrong and they were going to win.
Justin, I have to just ask you really quick before I ask you another basketball question. Why in the world are you wearing a Milwaukee t-shirt on an Indiana Pacers podcast?
I realized that as soon as I logged on. So here's where the Pacers need to catch up. If anybody in the front office is listening, the Bucks send me a load of different paraphernalia, clothes, etc. So I just happened to pull this one out of the laundry, wore the Bucks jersey today. I know that crushes you guys. So believe
it's disgusting.
Exactly. I got like 6 or 7 other ones. I got hats. It's funny because I live in Boston and I'll be running through the streets with like a Boston hat. And then I'll have the Bucks jersey on or a Bucks shirt on, and people will be like, what the hell's the matter with this guy? Because the Bucks are also a big rival of the Celtics.
You know why the Bucks are giving you free stuff is because nobody's buying their crap. So, and I saw Miles Turner's girlfriend had posted that she was actually at the team shop, and that she posted Miles' jersey up there hanging up and walking out with a bag of stuff. So, just your thoughts on what took place with Milwaukee's offseason, getting Miles Turner from Indiana. What did you think about that move?
I didn't like it. I mean, and listen, I'm sure you guys are pulling your hair out as well. As fans, like I know what it's like. Your team gets to like a big spot, NBA Finals, and you'll focus in on either one player, one guy, and he's driving you nuts. I was rooting for the Pacers once it got to the NBA. I was rooted for them the entire way. They're one of the more fun teams we've had in recent memory. And the guy that should have had the most experience, essentially outside of Siakam, the guy that's been in the NBA for 10 plus years, is Miles Turner. He looked like he was completely lost the moment was too big for him. Now, of course, you're not judging his entire career or season or his future potential off one series, but he was brutal in the NBA Finals. I think it's a big loss for you guys, but I don't think it's a huge gain for them. I don't think it's putting Milwaukee over the top. If he's your second best player, which he wasn't for you guys, and I think he might be for the Bucks, you're in trouble. So I don't think the Bucks offseason went well, and I don't know if it's necessarily over because there's still word within the last couple of days that Giannis hasn't made a decision yet. So listen, I think the Pacers are going to take a step back this year. I think the Bucks are not going to be good, but in regards to long-term future, the Pacers certainly have the edge over Milwaukee.
Could this be potentially, a moment in time in the future where Miles looks back and say, you know what, maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe I shouldn't have chased the highest amount of, the highest offer or anything of the sort. Because like you said, we don't know the status of Giannis. And there's a scenario where a year from now, if Giannis leaves, there's not a lot there. There is still the money owed to Dame on that, wave and stretch. And you look at the Pacers, once Tyrese Halliburton comes back, the rest of that roster is there. They are signed under contract, for the most part. And, they do own all of their picks, unlike Milwaukee, that's not.
Oh, well, you guys have a player, I think, that is the definition. And I had Alex on my show last week, and I brought this up on NBA Today on Sirius XM NBA Radio. I think you guys have maybe the best example of the grass isn't always greener that played for you a couple of years ago. And there's a lot of guys like Dwight Howard. I'm sure he wishes he never left Orlando. Russell Westbrook, I'm sure he wishes he never left OKC. Damian Lillard with Portland. I think the guy that might be at the top of that list is Victor Oladipo. Guy's 25 years of age. He's playing in a basketball crazed state. He's getting MVP votes. He's making an all NBA team. He's pushing LeBron to 7 games in the first round. And all you ever heard was, I want to be in Miami. Like that was the sense you got. Well, he got his way. He got to Miami, but he never recaptured the love that he got from the fans. He never recaptured the money. He never recaptured the talent as some of the injuries hit him. So I think like Victor Oladipo is a perfect example of somebody that regrets a decision. And that, it certainly could happen with Miles Turner, because even if Giannis is healthy this year and stays, that team's not, winning a first round series in my estimation.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult to see Milwaukee really doing anything this year with the roster they've got currently constructed. I know Giannis is Giannis, but that is that. I wanted to ask you about Pascal Siakam because just recently, a couple of days ago, Rick Carlisle was on a podcast with Caitlin Cooper and talked about how Pascal Siakam is a great player. And he said that he doesn't just throw that word around, lightly. It means a lot, and what Pascal is able to do on both ends of the floor. So after watching the Pacers run and just seeing what Pascal did, what do you think makes Pascal Siakam such a fascinating, or as Rick Carlisle said, a great player?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he's putting together a borderline Hall of Fame career at this point. And I think it would have been solidified if they won the championship, where he's probably called the second best player in Indiana. There was an argument, maybe he's the second best player for Toronto a couple of years ago. And this is to me what makes a guy, forget the defense. And obviously he's a really elite defender, but he's a guy that can score from anywhere on the court. And that's like an issue with a guy like James Harden, who I think you guys brought up here just a couple of minutes ago. Harden's a guy that's very predictable once you get to the postseason. That's not the case with Siakam. He can knock down the three. He can knock down the mid-range jumper. He can get you in the post and give it to you there. So he basically is very unpredictable, can beat you in a lot of different ways. And he was spectacular. Anybody that's capable of giving you 30 points in a postseason game is a great player, as Rick Carlisle talked about. And I mean, the resume is starting to add up where you really can't argue it.
Yeah, it really is. It's awesome to see him get that All-Star nod last year, and the Pascal, they could very well do it again. He's going to have, free reign to lead the Pacers in scoring. So
I had him on all just for everybody's edification. I said at the outset that I did not have Halliburton on an All NBA team this year because I still vote positions very strictly. I don't do this thing. Vote for the five best players, first team, second team, third team. I hate the way that the NBA has changed this because I want to be able historically to say, all right, well, Jerry West is a guard, made so and so amount of first teams, and then Bob Cousy did, and then hey, Chris Paul did, and I think that's the way that you compare eras. But I did vote for Pascal Siakam, third team All NBA. So no Halliburton on my list, but I was one of 2 or 3 voters that had Siakam down.
Well, we appreciate the love that you showed the Pacers, between, picking them for playoff rounds, all NBA votes. But, the league right now is in good hands from a young talent standpoint. There is a lot of young talent. And 2 young players on this Pacers team with a lot of talent that are stepping into bigger roles are Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin. 2 players that are also high up in the, before the regular season starts, predictions for potential most improved player awards. What do you think of those 2 players as they do take on a bigger role going into year 4 for them?
Yeah, I mean, I love both of them, and Mathurin gave you, I think, a 30-point performance there in the NBA Finals. So again, a guy that's capable of doing that speaks volumes of him. The guy I love is Nembhard, though, and I would have liked to have seen him a little bit more offensively aggressive, throughout the postseason and throughout the finals, I'll say. But it's difficult because he was the number 1 defender there on SGA, and I thought did a pretty solid job on him. But like what we saw him capable of being able to do the 2 games where Halliburton went out at the tail end of the season prior, right? Where I think it was with the hamstring, and then he torched the Celtics in those last 2 games, games 3 and 4, even though they got swept, got his pocket picked, I think, by Drew Holiday down the end of game 3. But other than that, he was fantastic. I think he's a solid defensive player. I think with a bigger role, he can certainly score more. Now he's got obviously big shoes to fill because Halliburton's one of the top 15 players in the sport, maybe one of the top 3 point guards. So that's not going to be easy, but I think he takes a big leap forward. And yeah, he's got to be on your short list for most improved player heading into the year.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but the Pacer fans here, when Nembhard has someone locked up defensively, they call that Nim Hell. And so I don't know if you ever want to use that or not, but
I will use it maybe in the future. I did not know.
Yeah, so like the Jalen Brunson Game 6 Eastern Conference Finals when he got Jalen Brunson to headbutt him, like that's a prime example of Nim Hell. We also say get hard, stay hard, Nembhard, but I know you probably can't say that on national radio, but if you want to, you can have that as well. But
I'm not sure I can say that in my personal life either, so I'll have it.
You can say it whenever you want. We say it all the time on here, especially me. But I will ask you about Tyrese Halliburton not being with this team. But when he comes back, obviously it's going to be a different version of Halliburton because of the Achilles injury. Like, what is your familiarity with that injury and how players have recovered?
Well, I have not suffered one myself, knock on wood, thank God. And it's one of the reasons I'm slowing down at 44 in regards to going out there and playing pickup. It's always in the back of my mind. I just hope they take their time with it. I'm glad that they're doing this where they've already ruled him out for all of next year because the Celtics haven't done that with Jason Tatum. And quite frankly, I think they need to. It looks like Tatum is in, that's the talk in Boston. That's where I'm located. And Tatum had this surgery almost immediately, as I'm sure you guys heard, because he was in New York. He had a doctor there that could do it within, I think, like 8 to 12 hours. They say that should help with the recovery process. He's already walking around without a boot. He had the injury just a month, I think, before Halliburton there in the second round, whereas Halliburton has it in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, so probably about a month and a half. But there's still talk he could come back. I don't like that. I think they should shut him down. Kobe came back in 8 months. Kobe was never really the same. Durant came back in 18 months. Durant, you can't even tell, had the injury. So I would prefer you go, maybe not the 18 months like Durant, but give him the full year off, then the summer. And what's that? That's
like 15 months or so.
Yeah, 15 months. Yeah. Do that with Tatum. Do it with Halliburton. And make sure that because listen, I mean, I think you guys are smart enough and intelligent basketball fans to understand this is maybe a play-in team, maybe a back end of the play-in. And if you bring back Halliburton for that. You're not making a run to the NBA Finals because he's not going to be fully healthy. Same thing with Tatum in Boston. So I would say give him all of next year off, allow him to come back for the 2026-2027 season fully healthy. And even then, I would assume it's going to take a couple of months for both Tatum and Halliburton to get the confidence back and the feel back to where they can hopefully be the same players that they were when they left.
People could butcher my name all they want, call me Fauci, whatever it is. I can't give medical advice. I just can't. But I can say this. Halliburton, only 25 years old. His game is not built on like a Russell Westbrook springy athleticism. I would like to believe that that's got to be able to help him compared to maybe some other athletes of the past where their game was really built on explosiveness and they were maybe 30 years or older.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, you see this happen to a guy like, I don't know, like a Derrick Rose or Russell Westbrook or John Morant. It's devastating. Halliburton's not necessarily all about the athleticism, and he's not a small guy either. I mean, he's thin, but he's not, he's not 6 feet tall. He's not 6'1". So, he's not Kyrie Irving either, where he requires that first step to blow by you. So, yeah, I think he can recover, especially because of the age. And you hope so, because essentially, like, that's Indiana's future. If Halliburton returns to what he was, then I think they can get back to the level that they were this past season. If he doesn't, they're going to have a hell of a difficult time doing that.
When you look at this Pacers roster, I want to envision it with Halliburton back, healthy for next season, or not this upcoming season, but the season after. What do you think is the biggest piece that they need to add to get back to the NBA Finals?
I mean, I would say center right now, you lost Miles Turner, and that's the other thing where I don't mind losing Miles Turner, is you have a year plus to replace him, right? You don't have to do it for this upcoming year because the anticipation is you're not competing for a championship, but you're almost, got a little check next to almost everything else you need. I mean, Andrew Nembhard, Benedict Mathurin, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam, and Halliburton. That's a hell of a five. Now, I don't know, and Obi Toppin's a young guy who I think came up, aces in a lot of big spots there in even in the finals outside of, I think, game 4, which will look back forever, at the tail end of the third quarter there. I think he missed a pair of free throws and makes those. Maybe it's a different story. But the point is, I think you got a bunch of pieces there. TJ McConnell, maybe a little bit long in the tooth by the time we get 2-3 years away. But and you do have a difficult time getting free agents there. Like if you had this roster and you're like Kevin Pritchard and that's the thing where sorry to go off on a tangent here, but Kevin Pritchard, you got to have confidence in him as your executive. He puts together this team in LA. He does it in Miami, etc. None of these guys are ever like Miles Turner's not leaving if it's Miami. He's not leaving if it's LA. And then other guys are going to say, "Oh, I want to play with Halliburton because he plays such a fun style." Unfortunately, you're not going to get veterans looking for a ring to go to Indiana. But the fact that Kevin Pritchard was able to do what he did in a small market, where this team can be sustainable once Halliburton comes back, just speaks volumes to what he did. And I was arguing this entire time during the finals because Sam Presti also did a tremendous job in a small market. I said I'm more impressed with the job, guys, that Kevin Pritchard did because Kevin Pritchard never bottomed out. He didn't tank. He wasn't losing games on purpose over 1 year or multiple years, and he was still able to put this team together. I think that speaks volumes to what he did.
Well, let me just follow up real quick with the center position because I'm curious. Is there a name out there that makes sense to you for the Pacers to maybe go out there and target for that starting center spot?
I would have to think a little bit harder about that, especially since I think we're a year away, right? So I don't even know if you guys have delved into that yet. I mean, listen, at times you get a little desperate for content in the offseason. I think we're going pretty well, but have you gotten so desperate that you're looking ahead to 2026 and that offseason and who's going to be available at the center position?
More so trades that they could potentially do.
That's how I
right. Players that you never know could become available. Like the Pacers obviously made that trade with the Pelicans to get their 2026 pick back. So now they can trade all their future picks without having to worry about the Stepien rule. So they can do all that. Plus they have Mathurin coming up on his rookie extension, might trade him. Yeah. There's different moves they could make. And so if there's a center out there that makes sense, it's interesting to see if there's a name people like besides the names we brought up. But I was just curious.
Did you have a name, like one that stuck out specifically?
We've had a couple. I mean, Facci, you had one on the podcast we did last week, center from Utah.
In terms of a trade, Walker Kessler is the type of guy that fits the timeline. So, it's funny when you mentioned 2026 free agency class. I think as Pacer fans, free agency isn't really a factor in our head. We don't have a long history of rich free agents signing with us. So it's more of through trade. So I think that when you look at a guy like a Walker Kessler and you know that Utah is always open for business, of course it would cost a lot, but he's young. He's obviously, a good rim protector. He can rebound, which is something that we haven't had really much in the center position for a long time. So that's a name that me, as well as many others, have been intrigued with.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. You even look at now, maybe not on the timeline, doesn't fit the timeline. You're looking at like specific guys that can maybe stretch the floor as well. Houston's got a million bigs, right?
Three centers that could
Steven Adams and Clint Capella. So if you're looking to make a deal with a team that's got an overload of centers, that's a team you could look at with, I don't think Şengün, but maybe one of the other two.
Yeah, Portland's been a team we've also monitored just because they've got a lot of bigs there as well, and they just drafted that kid. I can't remember what his name is now.
Jan Hansen.
Yes. They just drafted him, and obviously they drafted Klingen last year, so there's a team to keep an eye on. And then I've been shooting for the stars. I said if the Miami Heat decide that they're just going to, I don't know, they just kind of seem like they're stuck in the mud. If the Pacers threw a king's ransom for Bam Adebayo, that could be really fascinating to me.
Yeah, listen, I would love to see that because you guys talking about the small market thing, and I always go to bat for guys in the small market. That's like, again, going back to Kevin Pritchard has to use his noggin in order to put together a team, whereas Pat Riley kind of just sits on his hands and goes, all right, who's the next guy that's going to demand out of one of these big markets? It's a lot easier to put together a team down there. So I would love to see, them lose a guy to a smaller market and have them benefit for once.
Yeah, it scares me to death knowing that what it might cost and then paying the contract for Bam. Very, very good player, but I think, I worry that it could gut the Pacers in terms of assets and young players and that. So that scares me, but he would be such a good fit with the Pacers, really would. But, when you look at this Pacers team for this year, the Pacers haven't panicked. They haven't just made these trades just to slap a couple Band-Aids on. They've said, hey, let's stay the course. We have young talent. Let's see how this works out. If you're the Pacers, do you look to be sellers throughout this year? Do you potentially look to be buyers at the deadline if it's longer term to have a better roster in place, for when Haliburton returns? Or do you just try and stay the course and say, hey, you know what? We have a large chunk of the same roster that we brought back last year. We don't have Turner, we don't have Haliburton, but we have everybody else in between. Stay the course, don't panic, protect the assets.
Yeah, I think that you do everything with your eye. Like, even if it's a step back this year, you do everything with your eye on what's up for the following year, right? Whether that's like, hey, Siakam's dealing with some knee issues. I'm not saying that he is. Like, you allow him to rest, load up, and not waste, valuable mileage on his legs for just this season. If there's a move that maybe sets you back for this year, but you're getting a guy that maybe you have under long-term control that fits in nicely with Haliburton, even if he doesn't fit in, with necessarily the backcourt right now that you're throwing out there, with Nembhard and Mathurin, etc. Then you make that move. I talked about it the other day with the Celtics. With like a Jaylen Brown, he's going to go out there and he's going to want to prove a point. Siakam will probably do the same for Indiana, right? Where it's like, hey, I want to prove that I can be the number one guy in a competitive team. Well, you don't want that necessarily. You want the guy to take it easy on a season that's used as a gap year. Like I even had the conversation with Boston. Do you, if towards the tail end of the season, you're on the outside of the play and looking in, do you shut it down and you do a tank circa the 97 Spurs, circa the 2020 Warriors, where you're a competitor, right? A contender, typically every year, but you take that one step back, you get a high draft pick, and you reboot for the following year with another high asset, whether you keep it or you trade it. Indiana maybe follows the same road if they get off to a really slow start this year.
Yeah, I think that how they start will be a huge indicator of which way they go, because I don't think that's going to be their approach. It never has been. Like you said, they don't really tank and do that kind of thing. But I am curious your thoughts on the rest of the Eastern Conference here. What team or teams stand out to you as hey, these are the top dogs in the Eastern Conference and the best chance of getting to the NBA Finals?
I mean, clearly everybody's going to say Cleveland and New York on tier one. And then I think you would have a little bit drop off in most people's mind. They would say Orlando, maybe Atlanta, and, Detroit, the Malik Beasley thing obviously is a big setback. But I also think the growth of Cade, Jaden Ivey's coming back. So maybe you throw them in there as like the top 5 teams. So Cleveland, New York, then Orlando, Atlanta, and Detroit. But the team I would keep my eye on, to be quite frank, is Orlando. They might have a little bit of what you guys had there last year in Indiana, but almost the reverse, where you guys were so talented offensively the year before and then figured it out defensively, right? Took a big step forward in that regard. I think Orlando's got it figured out defensively. They need to take that leap offensively. The Desmond Bain thing, maybe a little bit of an overpay, but that guy can score. And then you got Banchero, you got Franz Wagner. Suggs comes back healthy. If they can become an average offensive team, or even like, the 19th, 20th offensive rated team in the NBA, I think they can go to the NBA Finals. I think they could upset the apple cart in regards to finishing ahead of either Cleveland or New York, everybody's top 2. If they're just average or slightly below average offensively, I think they can do what you guys did last year in Indiana.
I like your point there, because I do think that Orlando's got something exciting. And I remember what it was like when Indiana was like the worst defensive team in the league, but like the best offensive. And it was, if they can be middle of the pack defensively, anything could happen. And we saw that improvement happen. But on the flip side of things, looking at teams that are going maybe in the opposite direction. Maybe it's a bad analogy, but I looked in the fridge today. I saw some Domino's pizza from a couple days ago, and I said, this is going bad. We got to throw it out. And when I use that analogy, I'm looking at the 76ers. All right, what they got right now, you're hearing bad reports of Embiid's knee. Paul George looks like the production's falling off a cliff. You look at that roster. Do you believe that they could get it together, or is this like a ticking time bomb of something's going to have to happen to blow this team up, because they're very committed with 3 max contracts now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like probably the hardest team to predict in that, and maybe not even the hardest, because you're probably going, probably everybody's going to get hurt. But it's one of those things like, if everything goes right, right? And if everything goes right, they have more talent than Cleveland. They got more talent than New York. They got more talent than everybody in the Eastern Conference, because they'd have the second best player, if he's clicking on all cylinders, with Embiid. They'd have Paul George, a guy that's at least talented. He's not what he was. They got Tyrese Maxey, who can make an all-NBA team, certainly can make an all-star team. He did last year. I really like VJ Edgecombe, who they got with the 3rd overall pick. Jared McCain's coming back. He's talented. So they have all sorts of talent, probably more talent than anybody else in the league, but it's just really health dependent. And basically, here's what I would say. You guys watch the playoffs probably closer than you usually do. I assume you watch all the time. You're big fans, regardless of who's playing in the NBA Finals. But you see what it takes to get to the NBA Finals. Now envision Joel Embiid going through the first round, then going through the second, then going through the third round, then going through the finals with all the physicality, with all the pace, with playing every other day. Like, Halliburton got hurt. He's 25 years old. He's in perfect shape. Halliburton got hurt. Other guys got hurt throughout the
5 games is what the Pacers played.
So Embiid's not going to be able to do it. Yeah, he's just, I can't envision his body going through an entire, even if they sat him out the entire regular season, he's in perfect shape going into the postseason. He's going to be able to do that for 2.5 months with that level of physicality and pace, etc. I don't see it.
It does seem like there is more noise about his potential retirement from basketball. It feels like this is a guy that's just going to have chronic injuries for the rest of his career, but which is sad to say, because this is a MVP level player when healthy. So it's kind of rare to see someone go through this. I mean, maybe there's somebody you can think of, but I did want to kind of go a little negative here and just maybe get your thoughts on who you think right now currently has the worst future in terms of a franchise in the NBA right now. What team do you see kind of looks like a ship without a sail?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them. I like to get on Eddie, my co-host case. He's the Suns broadcaster as their color analyst, and they do have the guy, right? They have Devin Booker, and that's the most important thing to have. So everything else is bleak surrounding them. The cap situation, the draft assets, the other assets to deal. Like, there's not much going on there, but at least they have the guy in Devin Booker, right? So bad situation, but not as bad as maybe some others. Utah doesn't have the guy. Now, I think they have one of the better executives, but they haven't got lucky in the lottery the last couple of years. New Orleans is a brutal situation. Charlotte, just always a disaster. And I guess I would maybe say Charlotte, which is funny because I got in trouble for a tweet a couple of years ago where I said, hey, that's a small market that's heading in the right direction. Meanwhile, you got OKC, who's dropping games on purpose. And I still stand by that. I thought it was an embarrassment for the NBA that OKC was, intentionally throwing games for multiple years. It ended up working, and I think it's something that's not a positive for the NBA because maybe other teams are going to follow suit. It's a copycat league, but I did say Charlotte in that regard, and I'll say Charlotte here. Even though I like Brandon Miller, Con Knippel looks like he's going to be a really good rookie, maybe outside chance of winning Rookie of the Year. But I just wouldn't want to build a team around the health and the lack of seriousness of LaMelo Ball. So I'll say Charlotte.
I think it's a good question. I think, for right now, the league's done a good job in terms of like making sure that the team that tanks the most doesn't always get the number one pick. And we're starting to see that happen with like the Washington Wizards and the Utah Jazz have been looking for a number one pick. How many years do you think you can really go through the motion of maybe tanking before you just got to figure it out? Because look at Detroit. Detroit went from bottoming out for years to saying, hey, you know what? We're going to try and go for it. And they had a really successful year. And now they look like, they could be a playoff team for years to come.
The problem is if there's the reward, teams are always going to go for it. And again, the team that just won because they lost on purpose for 2 years. And they also made a really shrewd trade for SGA, but really they lost on purpose for 2 years. Then you look at the job security that Popovich had, where the guy's a legend. How did he get the legend status? They tanked. And now they're set up again because they tanked, but they got lucky. So, and all of these teams are going to go, yeah, but if there's a Victor Wembanyama at the end of the rainbow, a Tim Duncan, a LeBron James, maybe a Cooper Flag, we'll see what he turns out to be. But again, on the flip side, you could get lucky or think you get lucky and get Zion Williamson, where he was supposed to be, the next Kareem and LeBron, etc., and he's turned into an absolute dud. So even when you get lucky, you can be unlucky.
I mean, just to piggyback off this conversation really quick, do you think there's any fix to try and avoid tanking moving forward? Is there something the league could potentially do, or do you have an idea of what they could do to help avoid tanking?
I mean, that's one of the things like that drives me nuts is everybody calls up with an idea. I've got the fix. Maybe it's something because I understand the 1 year tank. So maybe it's something where like, all right, if you get the first pick 1 year, you can't pick within the top 3 the following year.
Baseball does something of that sort.
Baseball or hockey, one of those. But yeah, I think it's something where like, hey, you get the top 3 pick 1 year, you can't do it more than 1 year in a row. And then maybe you're out of the top, 3 or 5 for the next 2 years, something like that, just to prevent the multi-year tanking. Because that's what upsets me. It's not hey, 1 year, we're going to take a step back. It's, it's basically what the Jazz are doing now.
That was the example I was going to say. The Jazz aren't like a basket. It feels like just an operating business that is just like on like profits of this. Hey, you know what? We're not going to spend a lot of money. We're just going to go through this motion. We're going to facilitate trades and get more second round picks. And it's not paying off. They keep picking, these, I don't know, 5th overall, 6th overall, like those type of things.
Yeah. But again, like that's the issue I have with somebody saying like, oh, well, look how smart, they are in San Antonio because they got Victor Wembanyama and they got Dylan Harper. And look how stupid they are in Detroit and Utah. Well, no, the only difference between Detroit, Utah, and in San Antonio and, say Oklahoma City is those teams got lucky when they tanked.
Very lucky.
With picks, and Utah and Detroit didn't get lucky. So that shouldn't mean that Utah and Detroit's front offices stink and they're geniuses in San Antonio and OKC. It's the difference of luck.
Yeah. No,
Any follow-up questions?
I was just gonna say, I'm waiting for Utah at some point to try and we're gonna try and be somewhat competitive. It felt like when Danny Ainge got there, I'm blanking on the young head coach that he hired at the time, who was still there and
Will
got
Hardy. Will Hardy.
Yeah, Will
They
Hardy.
kind of got screwed because Will Hardy did the same thing. Like, he's a really good head coach. He did the
I
same
believe he
thing
is.
Brad Stevens did when he got to Boston, is he won too many games in his first year. The part that has screwed Ainge is he made the trade with the Nets when he was with the Celtics, and the Nets stunk, and then he got all those picks. That's how he got Jaylen Brown and Tatum, whereas he made those trades with Minnesota and Cleveland. Minnesota and Cleveland have taken off, so the picks that he got for Donovan Mitchell and Gobert when they thought he ripped those organizations off have been picks in the 20s, and he hasn't been lucky that way. So
no, it's true. So it's going to be interesting. It's something to monitor. But hey, Justin, we really appreciate you coming on our show. It's been a blast. But please tell everybody where they could find your show and some of the great content you're always putting out.
All right. Well, I don't want them to find my show, because if they find my show, they're going to hear how bad I am. And I thought I was good on this, and they're going to find out I'm really not that good. No, you can hear me on Sirius XM NBA Radio Monday through Friday, 4 to 7 Eastern time, really year round. But I am on vacation for the upcoming week. A lot of vacation taking off because I've worked straight through from the start of the season up till now. So looking forward to a vacation, and nothing like kind of heading off into vacation by talking some Pacers basketball.
That's right. That's how we close out basketball.
Can I just say two things?
Please do.
Yeah.
All right. So one, been watching the league my entire life, so 40 plus years. Been covering it for, 2006, 2007 was my first year. The Pacers up there with the most fun run that I've ever had in going out to the finals and just watching the postseason. So that's one. And then two, that arena that you guys have, I'm very jealous, because I've traveled now, I think, to every single stadium around the country. That was the last. I had been there for the All-Star game, like the slam dunk contest, etc. Doesn't give you the same feel as like a regular season game or a postseason game. Of all the finals locations I've been to, by far and away the best arena. So hopefully the fans appreciate that you guys have the best. And I lived in New York for a while. It's better than MSG. So.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I live in New York right now. I went out to Indiana for game 3 for the finals. It was rocking. It was an awesome atmosphere. Yeah. So Alex goes to, all the home games. So, hey, he's blessed. So I definitely agree with that. Two things, though. One, we got to get you some Pacers gear before you come back on. All right.
If anybody from the Pacers is listening, you got to catch up. The Bucks have given me a lot.
We got it. And
we might have to get you some setting the pace gear, not just Pacers gear, but our podcast gear.
Yeah, and then people are really going to think I'm screwed up, because I'm going to be running through Boston with like a Celtics hat, a Buck shirt, and some shorts.
You ditched the Buck shirt. But look, it sounds like you've been around. Sounds like you've been every arena. So you've clearly been in Milwaukee. I never have. My last question for you. Is the grass really that green in Milwaukee?
No, not anymore.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. All right.
When I go on a Bucks podcast, I'll say it's very green.
You're just pandering to the crowd to get people to listen to your show. Very smart marketing here by Justin Termine. So, all right, Justin, we do appreciate your time, and we hope you have a great vacation. Incredible work that you've done all season long with your NBA coverage. So, thank you for coming on before you go on your vacation, and we hope to get you back on again soon.
Thanks for having me, fellas. Keep up the good work.
Anytime, you too.
We keep scoring, we don't need to stop. New episodes, weekly drops. This your number one podcast. Sweeping every team, we gon' need a mop. Setting like pace with Alex and Facci. Alex and Facci. Alex and Alex. Setting the pace with Alex and Facci. Alex and Facci. Alex and Alex. Setting the pace with Alex and Facci. Alex and Facci. Alex and Alex. Setting the pace with Alex and Facci. Alex and Facci. Alex and Alex.